Hello, and welcome back to the Nurse Converse podcast. My name is Casey, also known as Critical Care Casey, and today we're going to talk about navigating your nursing career. I've spent 10 years as a nurse working in the emergency departments, critical care units, and also getting nurses ready to enter the profession as a nursing completion specialist. Now I've dedicated some of my nursing career to helping you succeed in your career. With me today, I have Sarah, who's also known as New Thing Nurse with me, and today we're going to get into navigating your nursing career. Sarah, tell the people about yourself.
Thanks for having me here today, Casey. I'm so excited. Hi, my name's Sarah, or the New Thing Nurse. I've been a nurse for about 14 years, predominantly in the emergency department, but all kinds of emergency departments. Stroke, burn, trauma, you name it, I've done it. I did a little pediatric care coordination, and then I moved into diagnostic imaging a few years ago, and also work very closely with nursing professional organizations. But for the last 8 years, I've had a company called New Thing Nurse, which is a professional and academic coaching company that helps nurses from across the country and around the world succeed in their nursing careers. And that's why I'm so excited to be here to help give you the tips for success in your nursing career.
Thank you again for being here with me. First, I guess we'll talk about mentors that have really impacted us in our careers. And I think for a lot of nurses, they don't understand how important mentorship is, especially when you start your career. I know for me, one of the best mentors I had was actually one of my managers who kind of saw that I had potential and wanted to grow. And she gave me opportunities to grow in the unit as a new nurse and getting involved in committee work, and things that I didn't really, even ideas that I didn't really have for myself. She kind of saw that I had potential and kind of invited me into those spaces. Was that the same for you?
Yes, I think mentors have been one of the most influential things in my nursing career. I've had mentors from when I was in nursing school, also as a new grad, throughout my clinical nurse career, and outside of it, which has helped support me as a nurse entrepreneur, as a career coach, and just helping succeed in many different facets of nursing that I probably never would have known about if it wasn't for mentors. One of my first mentors was actually one of my nursing cohort, so a student in my nursing program's mom, who was a manager in an emergency department. And she really helped me from the time I was in nursing school to prepare to be competitive for an emergency department job. I was lucky enough to get into an ED right out of nursing school, and that really set me up for the next 12 years of what I did in my nursing career. And I can't just say enough about mentors, no matter what phase of your career you're in.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important to, as we're talking about mentorship, this is also the biggest part of networking is finding those mentors. Sometimes they're not people who you work with. So it's easy to find a mentor if it's somebody that you work with. But I know when I was in the process of applying for nurse anesthesia school, which I'm currently a first year resident, but when I was applying for nurse anesthesia school, I had to find mentors because I didn't know anybody that was a CRNA, and even navigating the emergency department, I didn't really know anybody that was involved in professional organizations. So finding people through social media channels was important for me, and finding people like the Paramurse, Everett Moss, he was also one of the podcast hosts for this season, and just being able to find that. So that's one of the things, as we go through this, we're going to talk to you about. And I just feel like it's really important to underscore that throughout this whole thing, you really do have to find mentors, but it can be people outside of your work environment. And
Absolutely.
we encourage that.
Yes. And I think also people think that they only need one mentor at a time. And I think it's so important to have multiple mentors at any given time for different parts of your career. So when I was a newer ED nurse, for example, working in the emergency department, I had my preceptor was kind of a mentor to me. I was lucky enough to have a good relationship with my preceptor, and she was definitely a mentor to me. I also had some of our nurse leaders, our supervisors and managers also mentored me in different aspects of my career, helping encourage me to get my CEN, to get certified, helping encourage me to join my professional nursing association, which was the Emergency Nurses Association. And I will say through professional nursing associations, I really expanded my professional community. You talked about that networking aspect. I can't say enough about professional networking. It is important to do at work, like definitely know the people around you, definitely know people who are involved in projects if that's something that speaks to you. But also if you're interested in other things, like so you're interested in working in the academic space, like being a clinical instructor, if you're interested in publishing, if you're interested in research, if you're interested in a different specialty, there is a professional community out there for you. And a really easy place to find those, especially specific to a certain specialty or role, can be nursing professional organizations, because there's often a nursing professional organization for any nursing specialty. Or if you want to be a leader or a CNS or a professional development specialist, there are organizations specific to that. And by joining those organizations, you get access to hundreds, sometimes thousands, tens of thousands of people who are interested in the same thing that you are. And I think that's a great place to find community, find support, and also find people who are interested in helping guide and advise you and support you through your nursing career.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important. I think there's so many nurses who I've mentored or have reached out to me on socials and think that, it's just the Emergency Nurses Association or Association of Critical Care Nurses, and that those are the only associations that
Yeah.
exist. And there's heart failure nurses and correctional nurses and Veterans Affairs nurses. So there's so many different like places that you have. And I don't, sometimes I worry that conversation piece. When I last counted, probably over like 50 or 60 different specialty organizations for people to join. And there's a lot of things that you can get involved with within those specialties. And I think just to like reiterate your point about like having mentors, I kind of like think about it as like having mentors throughout your like seasons as a nurse, where your mentor that you start off with when you first become a nurse may not be your mentor. You still might bounce ideas off of them, but you might look at somebody like you might have a leadership mentor if you're a nursing leader, like a formal leader, and you might have an informal nursing leader that is a mentor to you. So you'll have people through every season, and understanding that it's okay to have that. Like you're not not getting information from one person or whatever. You're sharing and getting information from your community and taking a little piece of that with you everywhere that you go. And just with professional organizations, join your organization. There's so many opportunities. Sarah and I are both Emergency Nurses Association members. And
Mm-hmm.
then through that, we were able to start to work together on things. And ultimately, we're both section editors for the Journal of Emergency Nursing now. So those networking opportunities grow into opportunities to continue to work with people that you are friends with from your community, and that you have like a working relationship with. So I want you to take that in as you're listening.
I know that's a major nugget there. But before we met through ENA, we met online on social media, Casey. And so I would love to talk about professional networking on social media platforms, because I think that's something you and I are both very passionate about. And also sometimes when you're at a job or maybe newer to the nursing profession, it's hard to know how to network. And sometimes you don't or have the opportunity to network very much at your job, or for other reasons, you don't want to network at your job, which is also fine and normal. Let's share a little bit about social media. I think social media is such a great place to connect with people. Obviously, that's where I connected with you, so I'm very biased. But you are a top voice on LinkedIn. So if you want to share a little bit about that professional networking space, I think that would be super helpful.
Oh, definitely. And I think for nurses, sometimes we think about like Instagram, TikTok. Those are kind of like the places that people think that networking is mainly happening. But it's actually LinkedIn. And, I had the unique, like, funny moment of going viral on LinkedIn, which my joke is like, that you've made it as a professional when you go viral on LinkedIn, because it's not like a social media platform like Instagram, but it sort of is. It's, I think, to make it make sense for people that are listening, it's kind of like a Facebook, Instagram, but the professional version of it. So sharing like
Yes.
goals that you're trying to achieve and being able to network with people. And I will say that LinkedIn is probably the best place to, if you're looking for opportunities, you're looking for connections to people, because people are so attainable on LinkedIn. I don't know if you like would agree with that. Like you can find CNOs on LinkedIn and CEOs of hospital organizations and managers and recruiters and other nurses that are working in professions that you want to work in, or like just ways to connect with people more directly and kind of more organically in the professional space. It doesn't feel like you're kind of encroaching on someone's personal life, like is the case on
Yes.
many people's Facebook and sometimes Instagram. And I'll say, like, personally, like, I use social media differently. For LinkedIn, it's more professional leading, and advocating for the profession as a whole and like mentoring people through it. But, and then on Instagram, I'm using it more for creating stories and questions and supporting people in that way who want to seek certification. So knowing what avenues to network in are also really important as well. And I think for the new nurse, like, I mean, I just made a LinkedIn 4 years ago,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
didn't know how to navigate a LinkedIn when I first made it. I didn't understand how to use it, and since using it, I feel like I've been able to really grow both in the profession, and if you're just trying to grow into a role, there's so many good role models on LinkedIn that you can follow and
Yes.
kind of stay engaged with the profession that way. And I know,
I
like, you're
totally agree.
so you're very, like, you are very big on LinkedIn too, working on Top Voice. So
Yes.
what is your
Yes.
like take on
So
LinkedIn?
I agree with everything you've said. And like you said, LinkedIn is the Instagram, TikTok, whatever, Facebook for C suite, for employers, for leaders, for schools. And the other thing I always tell people is that LinkedIn is not just nursing, right? It's not just healthcare. So tech is out there, aesthetics, whatever you're kind of into. If you want to get into like pharmaceutical sales, LinkedIn has all of those industries well represented, and it's where people look for jobs. And it's also where recruiters look for potential applicants for those jobs or candidates for those jobs. So there's no better place to be than LinkedIn, really, if you're looking to make a career change, if you're looking to get into school, launch a career out of school, get noticed for different things related to the professional space, publications, whatever that may be. Research is happening on LinkedIn. I mean, everything's happening on LinkedIn, right? We're talking about everything and every aspect of healthcare, and you can really make a voice for yourself from your computer or from your phone. It's an incredible space, and I loved how you mentioned people are so much easier to connect with on LinkedIn that may otherwise be challenging. I encourage people who I work with in career coaching aspect that when they're looking for jobs to one, have a good LinkedIn profile, and two, to use it as a follow-up to any interview, because almost any leadership position person is going to have a LinkedIn, and giving them a LinkedIn message like DM is a lot more appropriate than trying to find them on Instagram or Facebook where their personal information is. LinkedIn is the professional platform that you can follow up with people on. It's also where you can find recruiters for jobs and also ask questions to those people. There's a lot of informational webinars about jobs out there on LinkedIn. And a lot of the leaders and I would say like influential voices of healthcare are also using LinkedIn to promote whatever their platform is. And so if you're just interested in learning more, I think LinkedIn's a really great place to find those voices and find those influencers. And then if you're also looking to influence yourself, that's also a great place to do it in a very professional way, without getting bogged down sometimes in the more social aspects of social media, right? It's like there's social media, and then there's professional social media. And that's really the spot you want to be and can really make a presence for yourself.
Yeah, and I think just there's so many other, like, other things that, like, you nursing voices that you might not even know as a nursing voice. Like, I don't know that Rebecca Love, if you aren't on LinkedIn, you may not know who she is, but she's very
Right.
influential in the profession. Same with Dr. Nurse Dan, who
Yes.
was also a podcast host this season. And there's so many people that now you're seeing them on like the Nurse.org podcast, like here on Nurse Converse, but also kind of making them a name for themselves on LinkedIn. There's a lot of, if you have a really great idea, there's a lot of innovation happening. And I
Yes.
will say that, like, I know for me, LinkedIn, finding like my voice in nursing and being able to advocate for the profession gave me a lot of things, a lot of more claim in my own profession, and like actually wanting to make change in the profession instead of just having things that I was like, oh, I don't like this, but feeling
Yes.
powerless to change it. And I feel like having a LinkedIn, having a voice, and being able to use that nursing voice, you see nurses like Nurse Alice out there talking about professionalism in nursing, but also nurses in the media. And I feel like LinkedIn also gives that presence. And you might be listening to this thinking, I just want to connect with people. And that's fine too. But as you grow in your career, if you want that platform to have the voice and grow with it, it's important. And I think one of the things that we didn't touch on, but I use LinkedIn for, I got a job that way, but I
Yep.
also looked up my manager and I looked at things that they were posting on LinkedIn
Yep.
and what kind of experiences they had, and where my experiences and their experiences kind of like came together, and things that they were passionate about that I was passionate about, and mentioning that, oh, I saw your LinkedIn as well as I was preparing, and we have these things in common and we have this goal, and I think that I could bring this change to staffing and to the nurses that work on this unit. And it's just another way. Yes, you're connecting in a professional space, but you're also like making connections that are meaningful for a workplace environment as well. And I think
100%.
and I think too, like, some of the professional, we talk about like your nursing organizations and LinkedIn, there's conferences that are happening in healthcare that you
Yes.
hear about on LinkedIn that you might not hear about if you're not on LinkedIn. Like Health is one, giant healthcare like innovation. They've started to have more nurses represented at Health because nurses are a large part of the healthcare and becoming more tech like invested in, and also in the development of technology that nurses will use. So there's opportunities to be involved and go to those conferences. The Magnet Conference, people don't know necessarily about those if they're not at a magnet hospital, but it's a great place. It's a great conference to see recruiters from magnet hospitals and kind of get your foot in the door there. If you didn't have your foot in the door somewhere, you were looking for connections there. So I will say, like, LinkedIn is, I have a soft spot for the LinkedIn, but it's because
I
you can do so much with it and connect to people so organically. And I didn't really think about that when I joined LinkedIn.
I completely agree with all of those things. And especially, I talk to a lot of nurses and they're like, I want to get more involved in organizations or I want to go volunteer. Sometimes they're like, I want to do medical missions abroad or I want to volunteer in my community. Almost all nonprofits, all professional nursing associations, pretty much any major organization has a LinkedIn page. So not only just individuals, but organizations do too. And sometimes they're promoting opportunities to volunteer, to become an ambassador for different things. Again, jobs we've talked about ad nauseum, but I think there's opportunities on LinkedIn to learn more about those options for getting more involved, whether it's something with a goal to be more, have a more robust resume. Maybe it's something that you're just interested in. Maybe you just want to give back to the community in that way. But LinkedIn can be a great avenue to like learn about different organizations or find their website or find their intake forms to get more involved in that. I mean, I learned about the Nurse.org podcast contest on LinkedIn, I think the first time for a few years ago. So that's just a great example of something that's happening out all over social media, but I found it there first.
Yeah, and I think I know for Journal of Emergency Nursing and others, they're when they post, when we were looking for people to write for our section, and just the journal in general, and Journal of Nursing Management, a lot of journals, when they're looking for peer reviewers, which are the people, when you're looking for peer reviewed articles, when you're looking for those articles, it's a second, like multiple nurses who have looked at those articles and checked it with the references and the message to make sure that it's appropriate for the voice of the publication, the profession, and then the audience that's looking at it. So for us, it's like, for example, for us, it's making sure that things make sense for the emergency nursing profession, for the readers of Journal of Emergency Nursing, which are nurses, but then specifically for our like our population, the new to specialty or new nurses, like brand new grads in the emergency department. So there's the calls for peer reviewers a lot.
Mhm.
There's calls for writing for journals. Like we've made a lot of calls on LinkedIn and just on social media, and knowing, again, following those organizations, being a part of them. They call in email, but again, because we know that a lot of nurses that are coming into the profession are millennials and Gen Zers, um, making those calls on social media as well. And they happen on Instagram, they happen on Facebook, but I feel like overwhelmingly they're happening on LinkedIn. So if you're trying to get a foot in the door, you really want to publish, you really have like something strong that you want to speak on, there's other avenues outside of, if you don't feel comfortable posting things on LinkedIn in a such a public forum, but you want to do some writing, or there's research that's happening that really is interesting you. And I feel like that's one of the places that you can go and networking in. And again, networking doesn't mean that you're going to find a new job or become a nurse
Right.
leader. It doesn't mean that. It means, finding somebody that can help you get to grad school, finding somebody that can help you get your foot into your organization. I know, like, you helped me get into the ENA, getting more into ENA as an organization.
No, I think when we're talking about that networking, we're really talking about just building your professional community. And that can mean in the hospital, of course, that can mean out or wherever you work. That can also mean outside of where you work. And that also can mean and that can be like local, state, national, or international. I think the other piece about social media, specifically LinkedIn in this case for professional purposes, that I really love is that I can make connections no matter, there's no geographic barriers, right? I connect with people from all around the world, and it's fascinating to me. I have a huge passion for travel and going and experiencing other cultures, but I think it's fascinating to me to learn about nursing and healthcare in other countries. And while it would be great for me to be able to travel all the time and do that, I have a 3-year-old, so that's not really happening that often right now in life, right? Life be life, and like we keep talking about. But I think it's incredibly capable. I'm incredibly capable of finding out and learning and experiencing things through the connections I make on LinkedIn with my international colleagues. Another thing I really love about professional development, and when we're talking about networking and building that professional community, when I talk about professional development, I think a lot of it is talking about expanding your community, expanding your connections, and then also expanding your skill sets. And I think posting professionally on a social media platform is a skill set that is essential for all healthcare professionals now, because how often are you seeing in the media like headlines that are saying nurse fired for what they posted on X, Y, or Z social media platform? Nurses potentially having license revoked for X, Y, and Z that they posted on a platform. Nurses getting sued for what they posted on a social media platform. So I think it's really important as part of our professional skill sets to know what is appropriate and inappropriate, and how to navigate those social media sites, because that's really becoming part of our professional toolkit, is how not just our professional in-person presence, but our also professional online presence.
Absolutely. And I think, as those standards are being set for that, and it's kind of awkward to traverse networking online and networking in general. And I think, really, I think that social media networking is a little bit easier to start with than doing networking in person at like galas and other events that you might find yourself at where there's other nurses. So do you have tips for people when they're in person at events? I know we've had plenty of events when we're in person with a lot of nurses, and it can be a little scary.
Oh my
I do my
gosh, yes.
homework before I go. I try to see who might be there, and try to know a few people that might be there and a little bit about them, but just getting to learn more about them. Do you have tips that you can share with the
Yes.
audience?
So these kind of in-person opportunities can be anything from an ACLS research class to a conference to a workshop to a gala or some sort of professional dinner, like Casey mentioned. Anytime you're around other healthcare professionals or other industry professionals, which really we're talking about nursing, we're talking about innovation, tech, and all these things, nurse entrepreneurs, we're in all kinds of fields now. So those important connections can be not just nurses, they're people from all different professional backgrounds. So when you're in these in-person events, I always like to consider every person I talk to can be a potential professional connection. And how I approach going to conferences. So before, when I was younger, a nurse and like newer to professional organizations, professional events, I didn't really think about looking at an attendance list. I didn't look up people online. I just showed up and was like my own cheery self, right? And you can absolutely do that. What I do now is way more intense. I definitely look up who's attending events. I try to look up their LinkedIn profile or whatever I can find online of anyone interesting, and actually make a list of people that that are my goals to connect with. It's usually not a super long list, maybe 5 or 10 people. But if I'm going to be spending my money and time to go to an event, I want to make sure that I'm connecting with a few people that I will help, who may be of interest to me. And ultimately, I may be able to help, or they may be able to help me in the future. Now, that might be more than you're interested in. So if you're just showing up at an event and you're like, this person might be helpful to like connect with later on, this is what I recommend. One, if it's a super like industry conference kind of event, if a person's a speaker or a leader, you could always ask for a business card, whether that's a physical business card or a digital business card. And that way you can hopefully get their email or at least their LinkedIn profile and be able to connect on LinkedIn to connect with later, or whatever social media or way they like to communicate. And a lot of people are moving towards the digital business cards now. I use Hi Hello Me, which is a free app you can use, but there's a million out there, so just be aware. And they're like things you scan and get all their information. But if you don't have one, you can always take a picture of their profile and get it. I always ask if they have a LinkedIn, if you have LinkedIn, and you can connect with them to follow up. If they aren't like a leader or a speaker or anything, you can always ask if they have an email address or a LinkedIn account that they might be interested in having you follow up with them. And if you have a really good connection with them and they seem very like open to like talking to you again, you could always ask for a cell phone number. But I would say like that would be my last choice. Generally, people don't want to give out personal contact information that's that personal. And so that's why LinkedIn profiles or email addresses can be much more preferable. Also have some confidence, like talk yourself into like reaching out to the people, because generally people go to conferences, workshops, galas, these things with an intention of expanding their professional communities, their professional networks. And so you would be surprised how often people are like, absolutely, I will give you my card or my contact information. I think when I first started going to events earlier in my career, I was really hesitant to introduce myself. And I was really hesitant to ask for contact information. And I probably missed out on a lot of opportunities that way. I would say people are really open to connecting with you and also following up with you after events, usually if they're in that space. The other piece that'll really help you succeed in networking if you're at events is to have a little elevator pitch about yourself. And what that means is to have like a 30-second introduction about yourself that helps people get to know you, because there's a big difference between me not knowing Casey and me going, hi, can I have your phone number? Creepy. Versus, hi, my name's Sarah. I'm an emergency department nurse. I really admire your LinkedIn profile and your LinkedIn presence. I was wondering if you would mind if I connected with you on LinkedIn, or if you had an email, I could follow up with you later. That is much more approachable, less stalker vibes than the first approach. And so having your elevator pitch, making sure you have a LinkedIn profile ready to go, and making sure you're confident to ask for that contact information when you're at those events, I think are 3 ways to really be successful in networking at events.
And I think too, like that's All great tips, really great tips. I think the other thing is we know that networking is super awkward when you first start.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that one thing that is completely okay to say is, this is where I'm at right now, but I'd love to get involved in this. And I think if you say things like that starting, it might make you feel a little more confident in speaking to people because then they know what your intentions are for networking with them. Because sometimes it feels like networking is what can I do for you? What can you do for me?
Yes.
But it's actually about like building that relationship with people that will become your community and recognizing that when you're talking to people, getting something out of the interaction is connecting with them and being able to talk more to them. And I think if that was going to be like my takeaway for somebody that was listening, you're brand new, and you are networking, is just to understand that you're building relationships and see it as relationship building. And even if you're not the most outgoing person, like I'm very gregarious. My husband is not. And yet he still is able to like network with people when we go to events because he sees it as building a relationship with somebody and he's able to see it in that light. And even though he's not the most outgoing person, he will make connections with people. And sometimes I feel like the connections that he makes with people are more meaningful than mine because he's stepping so far out of his comfort zone and sees it as like that true relationship building. And really remember that you're getting their contact information to actually follow up with them. It's kind of meaningless to get somebody's information to connect with them on LinkedIn without reminding them of how you guys connected. And again, to continue the relationship because it's not about getting people to connect with you on LinkedIn. Remember, we're not about followers, likes, and counts. We're about connections. And those meaningful connections really do matter.
I totally agree. And once you connect, there are multiple ways to follow up with them. So there's the LinkedIn InMail, which is like the DMs of LinkedIn. I think that's a great way to like send an initial hi, oh so nice to meet you kind of message. But you can also follow them as like a profile. And a lot of these kind of like leaders in healthcare often are posting regularly on LinkedIn, and commenting on those posts is a great way to interact with people to let them know you are following along. I think when posting, you do want to keep it very professional, right? So you want to say, but you want also want to say something. I think there can be a lot of filler kind of posts out there when you're commenting on posts. So making sure that it's a little bit poignant. So like, if someone posts something, be like, I totally agree. I think this is important because X, Y, and Z. Thanks for your contribution. Like that's a great way to comment on someone's post. And also sharing posts can be a great way to also show support for someone. There's a lot of really influential LinkedIn profile that I love to follow. And if something's really poignant, I love to share it because it expands the reach of that post. And I think also shows support to that person who created it, that LinkedIn creator who created that post. And I think you could really kind of carve out your personal brand on LinkedIn by what you share, what you post, and what you comment on. And people can get a real idea of who you are as a nursing professional. Definitely, employers are doing Google searches and LinkedIn searches for candidates. And so, if you have a profile, it's fine to have it just as kind of a voyeur or like an observer profile. But I think you can really add to what you offer as a potential employee or a potential job candidate by what you post. And people can really get an idea of who you are by who you follow, who you're sharing, and what kind of posts you're making. So realize that it can be a very much a value add to your career profile, especially your attractiveness as a candidate.
We're nearly out of time, but I did want to just give you the other side of it. As
Yes.
someone with almost 35,000 LinkedIn followers, I really do like it when people actually connect. It is great to have so many people following you, and that's wonderful. But like having, again, networking is about the connection. So if you're just following me, you're following my journey. But if you want to learn more or you want me to talk to you, you want me to help you with something, you have to connect with me so that I can intersect your journey and start to talk to you about what it is that you want out of the networking. And that's when we're building that relationship. That's how you get to getting the things, have somebody helping you walk through how to go about doing things and how to get where they are, and seeing that in yourself. So while we're out of time here today, you can still reach out to both Sarah and I. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Casey Green, all the letters behind, that is me. Or Instagram, Critical Care Casey. Facebook's the same way, or you can just add me on Facebook, same name as LinkedIn. Sarah, how can they reach out to you?
Definitely on LinkedIn. I'm on Sarah K. Wells, and on Instagram and Facebook at New Thing Nurse, NEWTHING NURSE. And I just want to thank you so much. I love talking about how to succeed in your nursing career. And I think mentorship, professional networking, how to navigate social media, and really taking advantage of those professional nursing associations are just such valuable things that I wish I had known about as a new nurse. So thank you, Casey, and
Absolutely.
Nurse.org.
And we're helping you slide into the DMs of networking.
I'm saying
Just
we're here to be your
networking.
podcast mentors. So it has been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. And this has been the Nurse Converse podcast. See you on the connections on LinkedIn. Bye for now.
Bye.